Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. This is college basketball, Saturday, March 9th. We're kind of into March Madness. I mean, it's not quite the tournament, but a lot of teams are playing for their lives at this point, and
Yep.
everyone else is wrapping up the regular season. And I don't know, college basketball is always madness. I feel like that's what we've learned this season, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, maybe you could say that it's not 100% madness, but it's also not normalness. So
for sure.
it's hectic, it's
Yeah.
frantic, it's maybe not mad, but it's a lot of crazy things right now.
I think, and this is the penultimate day of the regular season for many teams,
Mhm.
or for the regular season, I guess, as a season,
Yep.
and the final day for many teams. We will not have a show for Sunday games, as we rarely ever do. My summary thoughts, I think, on this season simply are that in the last show we picked Pepperdine to beat Pacific. We laid the points and we said Pacific's terrible
Mhm.
and they're one of the worst against the spread teams in the country. The books haven't caught up nothing to catch up just how bad this team is. And
Yep.
Pepperdine kicked the crap out of them twice. And yet we still had one of the weirdest first halves
Yeah.
I could ever remember. I think it was like 58-7 or something.
Yeah. It's
And yeah, and it was the good variance, right? We always talk about, hey, we those extreme games, you just laugh either way, if it's good or bad, and you like it when it's your way, but you know you're going to get some of them that are just bonkers one way or the other, and you just chalk it up. It's just the price of doing business. It is what it is. We're trying to focus on getting good numbers, getting good prices, so that we can tilt the balance of the scales in our favor. And those weird things are just weird, and we just acknowledge them and we laugh. And yet, I don't know about you, cousin Jared, but a 50-point lead at the half, and I was like, I've seen this lead lost in college basketball this season. I'm pretty sure. And that wasn't quite true, but I was like, I had to be like, no, Pacific's terrible. But I was like, man, we've seen this sort of thing happen. It seems
Yeah.
like in the season in college basketball. It's been quite a wild ride, I feel like, especially if you have a team with a 15 or 20-point lead, because you're like, I don't know if it's safe or not, which is crazy to say.
Yep. That, like, the funny thing is you say it like that. They were up by basically, let's just say 40 points at halftime
From covering the spread. Yeah.
Yeah, from covering the spread. And we have definitely seen like multiple 20-something point leads and 30-point leads alone. So it seemed insurmountable. But now that I say it out loud,
it sounds absurd also.
Yeah.
I had the same thought. I was like, if they were up 40 and we were only covering the spread by 30, I would have actually not been 100% feeling good about it. I would have been like, we've probably won, but I'm not sure yet, which is just crazy. We have a loaded Saturday slate like always. It's our last big one, and so our present to you viewer is 5 free picks. But as a reminder, you get picks on side and total for every single game every day over on Dub Club. The plays of the day, which continue to rock and roll all season. Double-digit ROI on approaching 300 picks, which continue to do well. All the A-grade picks and more over on Dub Club. That sign-up link is in the show description. There's no reason not for you to be over there. And so on days when we have only 2 picks, we give those as plays of the day and we don't do a show. And so if you're missing us for any reason, you could always find us over on Dub Club. And again, you can get $5 off your first month if you sign up with a link in the show description. Otherwise, though, cousin Jared, we'll get to it here at 2 p.m. Eastern with Iowa State and Kansas State. And we're going to start off hot out the gates with an under, which we have not done a lot of with some of these big name schools. And if I have to guess, we have not talked at all about why these games were selected in our brains and how we came up with them. We haven't discussed anything really, but I have a feeling what you're going to say. And I think it's going to be something along the lines of, we've played a lot of overs in Iowa State games. We played a handful of over in Kansas State's games. And even though this is a C grade, so people are like, oh, the C, terrible, whatever. The C grades are still like 50-50, right? It's not like they're all losers. You got to sometimes try to find value in them. And on a Saturday, we don't have to usually find value. But I think this is one of those, like, wait a minute, we're usually playing the over here. And so even though it's only a C grade under, the fact that the model even shifted the under kind of says something. Because, Jared, did I take the words out of your mouth?
Yep. Yep, you basically took the words out of my mouth. In Kansas State definitely has been more of an under team, but Iowa State specifically, like I don't know how many times we have, our little text group there where we're talking about plays every night, and it's like sideline says play the Iowa State over, and I don't know about that. Usually that's been a pretty decent call for us to stay away, and so the fact that sideline came out and said, hey, this is an underplay. I don't care that it was a C grade. That was telling me something. And it only helps the fact, in my opinion, that Kansas State is a pretty decent defensive team as well. And relative to the rest of the Big 12, definitely has some offensive challenges. This is one where sideline flipped, and it's just one that I've kind of noticed all year. And so when sideline hops like this is when I jump.
Yeah, and to reiterate, if you're with us on YouTube, viewer, you can see all the metrics on screen there. Iowa State, fantastic on defense. We've known that their offense isn't bad. It just lags behind their incredible defense. But Kansas State, as you mentioned, they're really offensively challenged, barely better than college basketball average, which is very subpar for Big 12 standards, for power, whatever number we're calling them, standards. The defense is pretty good, though. And in fact, the defense is better than Iowa State's offense. There's not going to be a ton of pace in this. The pace should probably balance out to pretty average. And so the model flipping like this, like you said, I think says something. And there's a lot of people who might, only trust the A grades. And I don't blame you for that, because the A grades have done so well for us whenever things can meet that criteria. And that's by design. But I would be remiss if I did not point out that recently, in the last couple of weeks, because Jared, we've kind of gone off script a little bit with some of the C grades. We've picked a couple of them, and they've tended to do pretty well, because at this point of the season, we have enough tracking it to kind of see what's going on, see the biases, see the trends, and having the bias in the model, it exists. We cannot really remove it. We talk about all models are wrong. Some models are useful. And by this point of the season, we have a decent idea there. Doesn't mean this is a lock to hit or anything. And the value, the C grade there, is just telling us simply that if we get 135, 136, 137, we would be much more excited about it. But this game stands a good chance of landing just in the 120s and getting us a winner with the way these two teams play. So a lot of reasons to like this, even though it's not the model's strongest pick of the day. One that we're identifying is one you should have your own. But as always, people, make sure we shop around for the best price. Turning losses into wins, losses into pushes, pushes into wins can be the difference between being a losing better and a winning better. We always recommend multiple sports books. One of them, if you have not checked it out yet, BetUS. You get 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits if you are a new customer there. So no reason not to sign up. Sprinkle your money around a little bit, and that can allow you to continue to grow your overall bankroll by just getting a little bit better value out there. They do come with a rollover, but especially with March and all the bets that you are assured to be making with March Madness, NBA season wrapping up, NHL season wrapping up, baseball right around the corner, it should not be too difficult to play through those rollover bonuses. And as always, we appreciate you checking them out if you have not yet already.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
4 p.m. Eastern, Kentucky and Tennessee. Because, Jared, I feel like this show, we're wrapping up the regular season, and obviously we'll have shows still throughout the rest of the month on college basketball and then going forward with baseball and whatnot. But I feel like, we're wrapping up the regular season, just playing the greatest hits here. These two teams have been teams we've liked the over on all season. Tennessee, not because of their pace necessarily, and their defense is really good. It's really just about the perception of Tennessee, that they are a slow, grinded out defensive first team, and they are still a defensive first team, but their offense is pretty solid with the addition of Dalton Knecht this year, and their pace has skyrocketed from what it's been in the past. The perception has struggled to catch up. We've been on a lot of Kentucky overs, not every single one of them, but they're a massive over team with their pace, their offense. These two teams already played once this year. The game got to 190. I'm not sure it gets to the 190s or whatever this time around, but if nothing else, we still have A grade value in that the model thinks the books have not caught up yet. We're going over 165. A minus grade, as the projection is 172, Cousin Jared. This one just seems like a no-brainer. Doesn't mean it's a lock. It just means unless they put this number in the 170s, you got to like your chances to win more times than you lose, and that's what we're all about here.
Again, I like to come on here and make good points, or like in the last game, talk about how I've noticed something with sideline. We have reached March 9th, and the Kentucky totals still aren't high enough. I mean, that is basically my entire analysis. This Kentucky team is something else. And especially as we've got later on in the season, I have been hesitant to pull the trigger on going over games in the 150s. We've talked about that a couple of times. Anybody who's looked at plays of the day totals have probably noticed a lot less going over games in the 150s. Kentucky's the one team where I have no hesitancy at all doing that. We had maybe a night earlier this week where it was Kentucky and it was like over 160. And I was like, until it loses, I'm rolling with it. And sure enough, that one was an easy winner. And so I think this is just falls into the same
category. 180.
Yeah, all the things that you talked about with Tennessee are 100% accurate. But for me, this is about Kentucky, and you just can't put the totals high enough.
I don't know, right? I'm not John Calipari. I know you're a shocked viewer to know that I'm not. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in the coaches meeting. But I want to paint a picture for you with Kentucky. They were up and down this season. They were winning some games. They were losing some games. They were mostly going over. They played that non-conference game against Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's been playing much better as of late. I think that loss probably looks a lot less bad now because Gonzaga's been great since then. But at the time was a little bit concerning. You have 89 points to a Gonzaga team that just hasn't been the same offensively this year as they've been for most of the past decade. After that game, it was like, all right, we've lost that game. We need to change something. And they did. They played a game against Ole Miss that landed 30 points under the total, and they won. Then they played at Auburn in a game that went 30 points under the total, and they won. And then they were like, this is great. We're going to continue to give defensive intensity. It's like something switched after that Gonzaga game. They went under for the third straight game at LSU, but they lost. And it's almost like they were like, you know what, if we're still going to potentially lose, there's no point. Let's just go have fun. And since then, the overs have been even more extreme. Folks, they were going over before, mostly by a lot, but since then, they've put up 117, 91, 111, and 93, and none of the totals have even been remotely close to their number. They have been easy winners. And so that, again, there's no locks in gambling. I don't know what will happen in this game, but it does kind of seem like they had that 3-game stretch where they had defensive intensity. But when you lost that last game, it was almost like, you know what, maybe we just need to try the other extreme of that and speed it up even more. Sure enough, they've won all 4 games since then, one of them being a pretty impressive road win at Mississippi State. The home win against Bama was good. The other 2 wins, kind of more expected. So this will be another true test for them to play against a really good Tennessee team. And I'm not sure what the game plan will be. I just know they've been an over team. There was that weird 3-game stretch, but since then, those last 4 games have flown over. And so there's no reason not to be back on this bandwagon. If you haven't already jumped on, we were on the last couple there and no reason to stop. So over 165, A- grade for you there. But as always, you get all this information, all sorts of details. You can be a smarter, better by looking at more metrics here. If you're with us over on Dub Club, there's a sneak preview of what you get for this game. If you want to pause and soak in some of the information and the projections for this one, you can. And look, a bonus game for you, Fairfield and Mount St. Mary's. I know that's hot for that one. But again, you get a chart that just continues to go on forever and ever on a Saturday, it seems like, with more games over and over and over, multiple screenshots there for all of the games that we have on our last giant Saturday slate. Sign up today. That QR code will get you first $5 off your first month. All sorts of sports, all sorts of goodies, plays of the day. Just continue to rock and roll every single sport. No reason for you not to be over there and check it out. Which will take us to 6 p.m. Eastern. Baylor and Texas Tech. Because Jared, Baylor's a team that we kind of cooled on their overs a little bit. A lot of the Big 12 teams, we're kind of taking a lot of the overs early on. We haven't taken very many Big 12 overs as of lately because they kind of seem to struggle a little bit. The model was adjusting to that. We're back on the over here with Baylor. 147.5 B- grade. Decent value for us, though. And look on screen there, you can see the pace of both of these teams in the mid-200s. This is a slow-paced game, but two really offensively efficient teams. And that's what I think people are missing here, that sometimes when these two teams play, defense can really be optional. We've seen that in a couple of Baylor games as of late, where defense is highly optional, especially in that last game here earlier this week against Texas. Their offense is fantastic, though. And so this is not about tempo at all, and just more about these two teams playing. There's just a really good chance one team scores a lot, and there's a decent chance both do. Over 147.5 to play here. Cousin Jared, tell us more.
We talked about this either earlier this week or last week. Like, what teams in the Big 12 are you just fully confident playing their overs? And the only
these might be the last two.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. The teams we talked about were Baylor and Texas Tech. And I think that we all, or at least I, thought that when McCaskill took the job at Texas Tech, I was like, oh, are we going to see a North Texas 2.0 out there at Texas Tech? When Texas Tech was flying high with Beard, I guess it was, they were playing really good defense, and it was kind of like, hey, is that what this team's going to be like? And as the season has gone on, the answer is they're not a fast-paced team, but they are definitely a better offensive team than defensive team. So I am surprised at how this Texas Tech season has played out with regards to how many points they're putting up. But hey, perfect for a game like Baylor. Usually love backing Baylor overs at home, maybe a little bit less so on the road. But I think Tech, like we said, is that one team where you're like, you know what, don't care, like the over in this one.
Yeah, there's been so many teams in the Big 12 that are very Jekyll and Hyde. It'll kind of just play with you whichever direction you want to go. Iowa State's kind of one of those teams. Iowa State's gone over a lot more, again, certain things, but in the right matchup, Iowa State can go really far under. But you have so many defensive first teams or offensively struggle teams. We talked about, Kansas State being one that really struggles offensively. UCF is another one of those all defense, no offense, right? Houston, of course, with their great defense, and they can still put up some points, but it just suffocates you defensively. Oklahoma can be low scoring. Oklahoma State can really struggle offensively. So many teams have fallen. Kansas over the back half of the conference season has become really a defensive first team. And so there's just so much more defense, it seems like, as the back half of the Big 12 season that's gone along. But I'm completely with you that Baylor and Tech are really the two I trust the most with regards to an overplaying each other. Seems like a nice little recipe to try it again. But folks, we do sometimes still take sides here. We're going to do it with Duke. Folks, you can lay the 4.5 points. You can take the money line. We've talked all season about this. It's personal preference, however you want to do it. We are laying a little bit of odds here. Everything that we grade is based off of profit units and ROI. And so obviously we know this is a little bit more of a conservative play with regards to more likely to win, but we're not going to win as much. And if we lose, it's going to be a little bit of a sting. That's the downside of playing money lines. You can lay the points. It's really been something, because Jared, I think you and I personally have probably changed our mind on about 7 times over the course of the season. Probably. It's not necessarily, the most exact science. We for the most part, I've just coded something in the model to pick, because I don't want to analyze. Again, we make a pick on every game. There's 5,000 games. I don't want to think through every single game, which one to take, right? So we just kind of code something in. So whichever one you want is a similar edge. Either way, we think Duke's the right side here at home. We think they should be favored by more. I think the model projects it by about 8. So whether you're laying the points or the money line, it's really a personal preference. And I don't really think one makes more sense than the other, especially with a number like 4. My personal 2 cents, I don't mind laying a number like 7, because at that point we think the team is much better. And so there's a chance it runs away or late fouls. 4 is a little tougher, because if North Carolina hangs around, Duke could win this by a bucket. And so that's not impossible, because North Carolina is a very good team. That said, though, Duke, looks really strong at this point at home. Seems like the right side. If you're in doubt, one other thing you can always do that we recommend is split your wager between the two. Cousin Jared, what's your recommendation for people? Money line, spread? How do you treat these type of situations? Full well knowing that nobody is going to go back and look at what you said to this question when I asked you a few months ago, because I guarantee, again, we've changed our mind like 9 times, because it's just, I think it doesn't really matter. It's really just how you're feeling that day, right?
Yeah. And so definitely one thing that I pride myself on, and I think we've talked about this at some points during these shows here, that both of us can be more robotic, and we like our processes and stick to the process. And there was one point early in this college basketball, not early, maybe midway through this college basketball season, where it was like, if it is like between -150 and like -250 on the money line, not doing it. Felt like every single one lost. And I just got to the point where I'd rather just lay the points, and I'm going to lose less when it loses. And this has been a crazy basketball season, right? Like even like all of the statistics about upsets and all the other stuff, like it has been an abnormal season. For me, this falls into I don't like minus 194. I would lay the points personally. But that is like, if I could just take away the memory of everything that's happened the past like 3 months, I would tell you to take the money line. But it's just the luck that I've had this season. I feel like I would say, what, I'm just going to lay the points here.
And honestly, just viewer, just as an insight into my head, because sometimes I feel like some of you've been watching this for a long time now, and so you feel like you know us, and obviously we wish we could know you. And if you're with us over on Dub Club, we do get a chance to know some of you, and so for those of you that have, it's always a pleasure. I personally, when we talk about a game like this, we talk about the money line versus laying like something like 4.5. I really personally like have this like turmoil, because I'm like, if I recommend to people play money line, I really hope the game lands 1, 2, 3, or 4, because that's the only way I look smart. Because anything else spreads better, because if they lose, you'd rather be on the spread, because you, in theory, risk less. Most people would risk less laying 4.5 than the money line. You risk a bit more on the money line. Or if they win by 5 or more, you'd rather be on the spread as well. So I personally hate it, because I'm like, by saying money line, I'm like putting my eggs in this basket of 1, 2, 3, and 4, which mathematically probably has a 10 to 15% chance of happening. It's not great. I can assure you that much. It's probably around 15%. So again, and viewer, you may, and the reason I say that and go through that is, you may be thinking the same thing to yourself. You may be thinking, self, when I make this bet and I choose between the two of them, if I take money line, I'm kind of hoping it lands 1, 2, 3, or 4. As opposed to spread. It's really tough. It's not an easy call. There's a reason why I coded something in a sideline. And so if you're struggling with this, viewer, my recommendation to you is simply find some sort of rule, and for the most part, trust it. Don't second guess yourself, and just kind of do it with everything. It's the same thing about playing blackjack, right? You have your rules about when you split, when you hit, when you stay. And if you're consistent, at least you don't second guess yourself. If you just change randomly back and forth, you're always going to second guess yourself. And that mental turmoil is not great. Half of the battle of sports betting is math and probability. And half of it is bankroll management, and the other half is staying sane. I know that's 3 halves, but I got to get a little Yogi Bear in me at some point. So just some food for thought for you as you're taking this. Either way, whichever way it is, we think Duke is the right side to be on this one at home. I think they're the much better team. North Carolina, not a bad team at all, but a great spot to back Duke here. Wrapping us up. And a bonus 5th pick late night, 11 p.m. Eastern, Arizona and USC. Cousin Jared, we are double dipping on this game. If you're with us over on Dub Club, we have a pick on the side as well that we really like. But here we're going to give out the total. I don't like doing this, but me personally, I like the pick that we have on the side, and I like the total in this one both. And so in that situation, I just have to say, you know what? I'm just going to play both. I'd be surprised if one of them doesn't win, and maybe we'll get them both. Specifically with regards to the over, you have a USC team and an Arizona team, both that are pretty similar on offense and defense. Arizona gets a bad rap for their defense. It's still pretty good. The reason they give up so many points is the pace. Their offense is good. Both these teams are very balanced. It's just all about the fact that USC plays a little fast and Arizona plays really fast. So they're not, the Trojans are not a team that's really going to try to slow anybody down. That's exactly what Arizona wants to do. We're projecting 165, makes over 159.5 a B grade. Considered, why did this over jump out so much to you?
We've talked ad nauseum about Arizona this year, but I feel like USC has really come along offensively in the past few weeks. And I know they had a lot of injuries early in the season. There were some other things that may have been holding them back, but I think they've been playing maybe a little bit better as late, but definitely better offensively. And so anytime that you can get a good offensive team that's been on a little bit of a roll, you like them going up against Arizona. Anytime you can get an over there. The other point is, you mentioned that this is the last regular season game. I feel like USC, they've got nothing to lose. Like, I think they're going to go out in there and say, hey, let's have some fun. Let's go up and down the court with Arizona. May not work
13
out.
and 17 on the season. They are not making the tournament unless they win the Pac-12.
Yeah. And so I think, hey, we've had a disappointing season. Let's get up and down the court. Let's have some fun. Let's go out on a high note, give the crowd something to get excited about, kind of thing. I think Southern Cal is going to throw everything they can offensively at this Arizona team, and that may cause them to be reckless, have some turnovers, and lead to more points for Arizona. So, either way you cut it, I think there's going to be points in this game.
The other thing to point out, USC's been a team we've been on the over for most of the season, along with Arizona. USC is 20-10 to the over, gone over in their last 3 games as well. So it's not like it's anything, where things have changed as of late. They've actually been more of an over team than Arizona this season. And we've long talked about what we love with Arizona, of course, is that they can score 100 or give up 100 on any given night. And I don't see how this is any exception. They can score 100 or give up 100, and neither one of those results would surprise me, especially getting against the USC team that really does like to score a lot of points as well. The reason Arizona hasn't gone over quite as much as USC is the numbers usually painted very, very high. And those have been times when we haven't taken the Arizona over, and sometimes we have, and it hasn't worked, of course. We haven't been perfect on it by any stretch of the imagination. But we've done well with the Arizona overs, and we've passed on a few that have been really high. This one against USC is one that really should be a lot higher than right around 160. The sports books are saying 150s and 160s are equally likely, but the model thinks 150s and 170s are equally likely, with all the 160s being sprinkled in between. So the fact that we get winners all those 160s is just extra gravy here. So be great value, but again, if you consider kind of the argument, because Jared, you were making there, that's not something that the model considers. That could be a little extra boost to think this has an average expected total of maybe even something higher than 165. So it might be higher than it'd be great if you were to throw that in there. People ask all the time, and I see this discussion on Twitter as an FYI, we have the model projections. Those are all computer. There's no human in that, because that way you wouldn't know what's me, what I'm doing, what the human's doing. And I have to explain my input. I have to think through 5,000 games. There's no way I could do that. It's the benefit of it. And then now we get to talk about what we see, what we like, in addition to or in subtraction from that. And in this case, this is a pretty good over, we think, to finish off your Saturday night. Again, more picks over on Dub Club. There's your recap screen, those plays of the day. You want to be over there for that, especially for the tournament. Cousin Jared, parting words for people as they head into the weekend.
Somehow my family has finally gotten into pickleball. I don't know if anybody, any viewers have any pickleball experience. But the thing about pickleball is that it is just so forgiving with that ball. It just floats up there. And so you get the illusion that you are, hey, I'm quick. I can get to this ball. And it's like, no, it's about the ball. It's the science. The ball is just slow. You are not fast. The ball is slow. So anyway, pickleball is fun. But I would recommend those that play, don't get a big head. It's the science of the ball that makes you feel quick.
I assume that makes the joke that we saw, I believe it was in the Super Bowl commercial, about pickleball being tennis for babies for adults, even more accurate, because it sounds exactly right based off of that.
Yeah. It is, I can't remember. It was like the perfect combination of like ping pong, tennis, and badminton, something like that. I don't know what
I can see badminton, because that one, of course, also floats as well.
Yeah.
I'm more of a racquetball fan, other than the fact that I one time in grad school knocked out a girl's teeth by hitting her with a racket in the face. Thankfully, she's still my friend, which is good, because that was like one of the worst feelings I've ever had. When you're playing a very intense game, and she kicked butt. She was a great athlete, and it was a very, I'm pretty sure she would beat me. And, it was intense. We were going back and forth, and I went to hit a ball, and all of a sudden her face was there, and I just could not stop. And that's the benefit to pickleballs, I guess, is you probably won't hit somebody in the face. Whereas racquetball can get a little bit more, like squash, I guess, right? It's a sort of game where it's, it's all there. All right, so what we got for you then this weekend. We'll be back next week with more college basketball picks for some of the tournament games. Again, remember, if we don't have a show, we just not find enough good picks to talk about, but we will have picks over on Dub Club. The sign up link, you can always get $5 off your first month with the link in the show description. We hope to see you over there.